So my name is Tyler Lay. I joined the Daily Free Press my second semester freshman year as a sports writer, actually. I moved up to become the sports associate editor, and then from there I actually became a city news associate editor, and then moved up to managing editor, so I've had a whole bunch of different editorial and writing roles with the Daily Free Press. But I went abroad my junior year, and when I came back I joined the board of directors, and since then I've been working to kind of fix a lot of the financial problems that the Freep, as we call it, has been having for many, many years at this point. We became a weekly newspaper this year just because of those financial struggles that we were having, and I took over as the chairman of the board of directors at that point. So I've kind of been overseeing the whole process of really making the whole thing very solvent, trying to get us operating in the black, and figuring out any debt that we've had in the past, and also overseeing things like staff cycles, any sort of internal problems among the staff, and just kind of generally keeping up with relations in the university and all of our clients and things like that. So we originally decided to switch to a weekly format, a weekly print format, and a daily online digital content format because of the debt that we had been accruing over the time for the past number of years. When we did that, we still had that debt from the recent print cycle, about $60,000, $70,000, and we were informed by our printer that we were going to have to cease operating with them because we weren't really making up that money right away. Our new business model did allow us to operate, much more close to that line of breaking even, but ultimately we did have that debt to take care of. So we essentially just got together as the board of directors. We looked at several different options. Ultimately, we came down to choosing that a fundraiser would be the best option. To make up the debt, we had a couple of different ideas. Some we had been working on for a little bit longer than others. A big portion of our advertising comes from the university, Boston University, and we were kind of negotiating our contract at the time, and still are. So that was one thing that we were looking into, hopefully boosting our revenue. But ultimately, when we were given that deadline, that end-of-year deadline, right at December 31st, where our printer was actually just going to kind of cease operating with us, we went ahead, we met at our weekly meeting, on a Sunday, and we said, we got to do this now. I think it was early November, so we had fewer than 2 months, but we realized, we got to take action now. We can't be waiting any longer. We've always known that we have a great base of alumni, from the Daily Free Press itself, also from the university at large. It's a very large university, a very kindly one, a very generous one, I like to think. So we said, why don't we go ahead and really launch a fundraiser? We had talked about it kind of tangentially, almost like, oh God, that's a stressful thing. Let's not get to that point, but we got to that point. So we sat down. I think usually our board meetings last about an hour. This one lasted maybe 3 or 4 hours, where we were just together brainstorming how to reach out to as many people as humanly possible. Ultimately, we settled on, of course, social media. My role in it was really directorial, only insofar as really greenlighting it and then establishing the specific time frame that we had. I also made the GoFundMe page where all the donations were directed, but other than that, it was just a huge brainstorming session for really figuring out, how to reach out to specific people, how to just reach out to communities at large, how to sort of bring people together, how to draw them in with things like incentives on the GoFundMe page, and just, basically a lot of hope as to how it would come out and, beating that deadline. We have been working on reestablishing our connection with alumni, because over the last 3 or 4, maybe 5 years, we've kind of dropped that as a focus. So we did have an alumni chair this past year. Chris Lazinski, is currently our vice chair. He was actually abroad at the time, so we had kind of put that to the side for this last semester. But he had done some great work to really pull a lot of people together. So we did reach out by email, even sometimes just on Twitter or on Facebook, to these people that we had reconnected with, in the past month or two, maybe 6 months, a year. And we connected with a lot of people personally, and in addition, we just really spammed all sorts of different social media sites. We had we made sure that everybody on staff and all of the recent alumni that we're still very close friends with that work locally in newspapers and in journalism and things like that, we really requested that every single person do some sort of a message or a call to arms to really figure this thing out. Everybody was very amenable to that. All of our staff, from the editor-in-chief Kyle Plants at the time to our our newest writers, were really sending messages out there and connecting with people. The way we got some of the bigger names, we do have a pretty solid base of alumni that are in the public sphere. I'm not sure who exactly it was that informed Bill O'Reilly. We did get an email from I believe it was Bruce Fierstein, saying, hey, who's currently works in LA, I believe. He said, hey, Bill O'Reilly is aware of this fundraiser, and then from there it just kind of took off. I got that call, and that's when we got the donation from Bill. Ernie Bach Jr. actually, I think, just kind of caught wind of it because of the size of the whole thing. He, I believe, told us that he saw it on the news, Channel 5 maybe. He called up his PR representative, and he just decided to kind of complete it for us on the second day. Where we had the hashtag Freep Fund, we created a little graphic, we started doing different videos and kind of disseminating them over Facebook, on Twitter, through the GoFundMe, all sorts of different things. And really we had a pretty nice cycle going where we would release some sort of new information or some sort of incentive every few hours and things like that to really keep enthusiasm up and keep reminding people that we were going for this, and then it was absolutely quintessential that we did accomplish our goal by the end of the year, which was 2 months away. We had originally thought it was going to take us pretty much to the last minute to raise all of this money. We really just didn't know. We weren't sure if it was going to be a success at all. We hoped that at the worst, it would, put us right down to the wire. We might get a significant portion of the $70,000 that we were looking for. We might not quite make it all, but hopefully that would, convince our printers that we can in fact raise the money, and they would, continue, give us a little bit longer, and then we would finish it from there. Ultimately, when it happened, I think it was about 40 hours when we completed the whole thing. I was incredibly surprised when we got that donation from Ernie Bach, that pledge, and then I brought it, the news into the office, and people just thought I was lying. They were like, there's no way that happened. Nobody really knows who Ernie Bach is, apparently, outside of Massachusetts. I'm a huge fan of him, but apparently he's more of a local celebrity. So when I told my staff, they were like, really, what's going on? It's like, are we going to keep printing? And I was like, it's completed, we did it. And we had a nice little celebration in the office that night, and then we printed the newspaper right after. So it was a really incredible night. Everybody was very surprised, but just totally elated as well to know that we weren't going to have to worry about debt for a while. Number of reasons to invest in student media, I believe. I think Bill O'Reilly himself, he was an alumnus of the newspaper and Boston University, so I think he kind of appreciates student media as I do in many ways. I think there's nothing like the physicality of just holding a newspaper, and it's very tacit, but it's there and it's important. When you see it on campus, it reminds you that there's somebody there that cares about what's going on in the community, watching the administration, what happens in the city, all of those things, and reporting on it, on a daily basis, online of course, but then weekly in the print. They're seeing that you're there all the time and that, the students care. It's the voice of the students, that's very important. And also, because we were essentially saving the print aspect itself, that's very important for, people that do graphics and layout and things like that. There's different ways to handle, physical print when you're thinking in terms of layout than if you're just looking at a website and online content and things like that. So, I think there are many different reasons that the print aspect is important itself, why you'd want to support a newspaper in general, especially when it's from students. Just generally growing journalists so that the next rank of professional journalists can really know what they're doing. I think it's best to give students that diverse array of experience, from print to online to even blogging to different formats like we've been able to start up since we did this fundraiser, like podcasts, all sorts of different things. I think it's very important that people get a sort of comprehensive understanding of reporting. I'd like to thank all the donors that we had, all the support, anybody who loves student journalism, especially Bill O'Reilly and Ernie Bach for really putting us over that huge limit. I'd like to thank all other student newspapers for fighting the good fight and keeping whatever sort of format they can going, but I don't think I really need to say that student journalism is very important, and I really hope that you're all passionate enough to really push to keep it going no matter what sort of trouble you may find, whether it's financial, editorial, whatever it is. Continue to fight, continue to report. Ask the good questions, ask the right questions, and put out those good stories.